Hey John, how's it going?
Hello, Dan.
Doing well, dude. Doing well. It's great to. I don't think we've ever sat on a call together, so it's great to finally chat with you.
No, you don't. You've got a very deep voice, which I didn't expect. So, no, we definitely haven't talked before.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. This is the first time I got someone complimenting me on my voice. So
Okay. Are you at home in Canada or are you traveling at the moment?
no, right now I'm at home for now, but I will be traveling next week, and I just got back from like travels last week. So yeah,
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I think people see about you that you seem to be on the move and traveling and visiting different places a lot.
yeah. It's been the last year has been pretty hectic in terms of travels. I mean, I'm glad for it. It's been really fun, but takes a toll too. It's something you don't really realize. It's something you wish for and want a lot, but then I don't know, kind of gets old in a way, and you kind of just want to settle down and focus.
I, at this point, could sort of like the kind of travel now where you get to go somewhere and stick around in one place for a while. So,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I had a blast. I was away for a week recently in Bucharest, but at the end of that week, I was just like, damn, I'm just so glad to be back in my room where everything is, my stuff is exactly where I want it to be.
yeah, yeah. No, exactly. That's how I've been feeling. I mean, especially for like my travels too. Some of them have been just for like a few days or like a week, and then yeah, yeah. Me and my girlfriend love to travel, but yeah, I agree. The longer term stuff is a lot more enjoyable, at least where I'm at now. We did do long term travel last year to Italy, so that was good. It was good to like buckle down and just kind of have the time, the space, and not feel bad about staying inside some days. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Awesome. I think I mean, I'm aware of you for a while, and I know you've done some stuff with Ed Ray. Did you work with Matthew Volkman as well?
no, well, not really. I know Matthew, he worked with Sean Ferris. Like that was kind of, I think, his first sort of copy chiefing gig. So I'm pretty sure I did submit a couple pieces of copy back in the day, but I
Hmm.
haven't actually worked with them. Mostly
How,
just all with
how did you get into the business? Where did you start out?
uh so I started off in the high ticket sales industry, and then like long story short, basically found a sales coach who pitched a pretty great opportunity, had good value to share, but then when I joined that opportunity and paid for it, it just ended up not being a good opportunity at all. It was just a bad sort of experience. So yeah, from that point on, I just got so burnt out of the sales industry that I was like, I want to do something else. But he's the one that actually introduced me to the sort of email copy and whatnot. So I guess that's the silver lining in that experience. And I just decided to go all in on that. So I left sales and then transferred to copywriting. And then yeah, went withdrew like all of my money to join a program to get it like all into it. And then at the end of the day, it thankfully paid off. So
That's awesome. You primarily work with high ticket coaches now, right?
yeah, high ticket coaches, that's really like the niche that I enjoy working with most. It's I don't know, I just enjoy people that have a desire to help other people as well. I mean, I'm the same way. So I've never really tried writing for like health and stuff, but I don't know. There's something about biz ops just fun. It's just that's kind of what I found. It's just fun. There's like so much opportunity out there, so it's pretty. You can transfer your skills between so many people and so many different coaches that, yeah,
And if somebody has a good program, I mean, yeah, like they inevitably will have some amazing results and some great stories to tell.
yeah, exactly. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I mean, some of the financial results that people share from like the finance industry or even health, those are really cool. But yeah, I think because there's so much opportunity in BizOp that the results, it's just like, I mean, there's pros and cons to the industry, but for the most part, I choose to see the good side of it. So yeah, some of the results that people have, it's just like super life changing as well, given our, given especially what we all went through during COVID and whatnot. So
Hmm.
yeah,
And I know I've seen, like, actually a client of mine was recently talking about you, saying like, because you post um some big results pretty often, and like people he's like, this guy is speaking my language. Like, so what are you doing? How are you putting out the message out there and attracting people to come to you for your service?
Um, I mean, it's nice to hear that, people are resonating with the content. I think I don't know. I don't have like a clean cut answer for that. I go in my head a lot around content as well. There's people that do it way better than I do. For me, I just kind of focus on highlighting some of the wins that my clients have. I think that's really what works well. Whether it's I do it for myself or I do it for my clients, it's just you can't go wrong with sharing wins that you've kind of helped create. But other than that, I'm also just, I don't know. I like to think that I'm pretty raw and honest around certain things, just like especially around my journey. I'm not too afraid of getting vulnerable with certain stories. So I think that just, I don't know. I don't want to try and blow up my tires or anything, but I think it says something when someone's young, creating results, but also is like has the ability to get vulnerable and to share some like the not so pretty side of business. So I think that's probably what it is. That's kind of what I would attribute it to. But yeah, that and just sharing what we've kind of tried, but people usually don't really care about the what or the how necessarily. They just sort of care about the result or care
Mhm.
about some of those deep stories.
Tell me about the first big win you had as an email marketer.
Yeah. Aside from getting a pretty big client as one of my first email clients, I think I mean, this was big for me because I spent a lot of my time when I got into copy, I spent a lot of my time working with agencies where I didn't really get to see the results that I was producing. I was just kind of writing. I did write for one agency that was actually really good with sharing the results for Facebook ads, but I didn't really have the knowledge at the time to really understand what the numbers meant. And it was never really highlighted in my own sort of, I want to say, my own benefit as to like what those results mean. So I've just had a lot of people that are like, oh, you're pretty good at writing. You seem to be, talented at this. So I was like, okay, cool. But I never really took it too hard because I spent a lot of my time also submitting free samples and nobody wanted to pay me. So I was like, everyone's telling me, I do good work, but no one wants to pay for it. So it was really frustrating. But I think the big first win was just when I did have someone come to me into my DMs, ask me to help with their emails. And then when I sent out the first batch, they were like, these are like unreal. Like they absolutely loved what I wrote. And even though it's not a financial result, the fact that I had someone come to me wanting to work with me, actually pay me to work with them, and then love the first set of emails that I sent them, that changed my confidence completely in what I did. And they were like a decently big name too in the industry. So yeah, I think that was the big win that I can think of. But more recently, and I actually shared this on my Facebook, but I was breaking down the numbers for one of our clients. And within the first 9 days of working with them, we generated $72,500 with their
Amazing.
email. And then within the first 100 days, we brought in over $700,000, which was like nuts. So
Was that far beyond your expectation of what was possible?
yeah, it was. It was, yeah, by far. Like I knew that the emails did well, but when I sat down literally this morning to break down the numbers, yeah, it really did show me what was possible. Like, because it just depends on the clients you work with as well. But it helps a lot because that client specifically, they had everything set up, like all the infrastructure set up. Their sales team or like they're great. All the team members that I even speak to are always on top of everything. So they have everything dialed in. I just came in to write some of the emails for them and it just happened to work really well. So yeah, I do credit a lot of sort of that success to the system that they already had set up, because if it wasn't for that, then you can write the best emails in the world, but if the client doesn't have their, shit together, then you're probably not going to get too far.
And I just want to come back to what you said a moment ago about like feeling it was a huge win the first time they came looking for you. Because as a freelancer or working as a consultant, or whatever, like the grind of finding new business can really, it seems to beat people down after a couple of years. So if you get to the position where opportunities show up because of reputation you've built or the network of connections you've built, it
Yep.
completely changes things around, makes it feel so much easier, right? Like that you're
Yeah,
not actually having to grind out so much of your work time on just finding new people to work with, and you can focus on doing the work.
exactly. I mean, the crazy thing about that first client too is like I didn't really have a reputation. So Ed, when I started working with Ed, one of the big things he recommended for me is starting like a personal brand on Facebook and just starting to post. I despise the idea. I heard throughout my, before working with him that, probably starting a personal brand is a good idea, but I was like, nah, I just cannot stand the thought of having to create content. But I did it anyways. And then within, yeah, 2 months of just posting every day, like I didn't really have results to share. Once again, that was just fresh out of working with agencies. In fact, when that client came, I was able to leave the second agency that I was working with. So that was kind of like my full transition from agency writer to freelancer. So, and I was just going off the results that the agency owners shared with me, which was just like positive words like, hey, we love this, you're doing great, stuff like that. So I didn't have too many things to share or leverage. And it just so happened that when that client read one of my posts, he just resonated with it and sent me a DM, which is wild too, because he never engaged with any of my stuff. I actually, like, this is something a lot of business owners, freelancers just don't realize is that like some of the best clients that you're ever going to get are the ones that lurk in the background. They just, you never know they exist, but they're watching. And at a certain point, they're going to pounce and you're going to be so grateful that you just kept posting despite it and seeming like it just not doing anything, not pushing the needle forward, but it is.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. A lot of the time, just posting content, and it doesn't even have to be business content. It can just be sharing your thoughts. And
Yes. Yeah.
like, even if you can just write enough, if you can just write well enough to get people to leave comments under what you wrote or start a conversation, that in itself is a demonstration of competence for what we do.
Yeah. I think you brought up a really good point. And I guess I'm going to credit that as well to what makes people come to me is that whenever I get into my head about content, I focus a lot on business because I get really logical with it. I'm like, okay, if I want to attract my ideal client, I need to speak to their problems well. But it's like the reality of the situation is we're all human. So it's when you speak about topics outside of business, and you share your personality, that's when you're attracting some of the top tier clients or some of the top tier people you want to work with as well. Of course, there's a balance, but that in itself, it just you separate yourself from everybody else that tries to reach for these clients that basically say the same thing over and over again, just in different ways. Do this to scale your business, cut down costs, whatever it is. But when you speak about your personality, or you and your life in general, nobody can really compete on that. Like that's when people actually start to like you as a person. And that's so much more beneficial because what I've learned is that you can be 7 out of 10 skill set. But if people see you as like a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 person, they're going to choose you over someone that may be a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 skill set, but like a 6 or 7 out of 10 person. Like the personality aspect and the relationship goes far beyond skill set because no one really wants to work with a bunch of weirdos or like lame people in their business. They want to put together people they actually enjoy working with. And I think that's part of what has helped me work with some of my clients for over like a year and a half now. And it's also just what brings some of the, characters into my DMs as well, is because like I don't usually like talking about business. I usually just like about what's, more the philosophical type stuff.
Yeah, I think you see a lot of people doing that, trying to talk about business law in their content, and it can work for certain people. It can work for people who have very high authority already or tons of results because they have the authority to speak on that and people believe them. But if you don't have proof of results out there already, or you haven't been, aren't well established, or aren't a big name, people just think, who's this goofball? Whereas
Yeah.
when you just post about who you are and your experiences, and even silly stuff like jokes, people like, I mean, you don't always want to be posting jokes, but even just stuff like that, if people resonate with your sense of humor, they can see themselves actually getting along with you and being able to work with you.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I 100% agree with that. I think like Hormozy talked about this in one of his videos too, is just there's another layer to it where, you talk about business, you talk about personal life, but like the sort of thing that bridges the gap is more so talking around what you're going through and your experiences and your learnings instead of trying to position yourself as a higher authority. Like that's when you lose. I've done that so many times and I've tried this so many times. It always flops. It just does not work. But yeah, when you especially share, because that's also what brings out like the deeper traits that these people are looking for. Like these clients are looking for A players to help them out. And you don't necessarily show yourself as an A player by telling someone you're an A player. It just comes through in some of the things that you say, the way you process information, the way you actually act. So results are sort of the action, and some of the ways you process information and speak and think about things is more so, at least for the people with personal brand, is how you write out the content and what you actually say. So it's the substance. So it's all a balance. It all plays together. Each individual aspect, it might move the needle a little bit, but when you stack all of them up, that's like when sort of the compounding effect really takes place.
What's the shape of your business now? Typically, how many clients are you working with at a time, and how much time do you put into your work every week?
Yeah, so it's funny because I know we chatted last like in August, and I was just talking to my girlfriend about how much has changed since August. So when I was freelancing, it's my limit seemed to have been around 4 clients, and I would spend a few hours a day on each client between writing, communicating with them, editing their work, strategizing stuff, just thinking about campaigns and whatnot. Um, and then yeah, every time I would try to bring on like a 5th client, that's when things kind of start to break down more so just through bandwidth and just the inability to manage that many voices and that many brands as a single person, especially when you're writing daily emails for each. Now, I've gotten over some of my hesitations around starting my own agency. So September is when I fully decided to go all in into it. And I got 2 team members right now that are helping me write. Right now, we have 5 different clients. And I think that's the thing, is like, there's a lot of agencies that do want to optimize for size, and I don't mind bringing on more clients, but I'd much rather work with, 3 to 5 clients on a very deep level where we're not just writing emails, but we're like actually involved in the email marketing strategy. We're actually talking to their sales team about what's going on, how we can tweak the emails to be better. We're actually talking to the rest of their marketing department, or maybe consulting on like ads, funnels, whatever it is, to make it like a cohesive sort of team, cohesive effort, instead of having it fragmented. So that's sort of the big thing is right now is, yeah, we're working with 5 different clients. A few of them were like, we got skin in the game with them, so we're working in depth with each of them, and we got great relationships with all of them.
What are the new challenges you've experienced since actually launching an agency and becoming a team leader?
The transition from being freelancer marketer to leader CEO type, like it's a whole different dynamic of thinking. Because as like, and once again, like I have 2 people, so I'm not pretending like I have some massive business, but still the fact that now, I never really thought about operations or things like SOPs or training cooperators, or managing a team, managing client rosters, just all that. Like it was just all on me. I would just kind of do it. That's fine. Now it's all about, where do I find people that actually want to work with me, that do great work? How can I pour into them to make sure that they develop throughout it? What kind of compensation is fair for them? Especially on a sort of week to week, month by month basis, how do I keep them engaged and involved? Because when I was working at agencies, it's easy to just feel like you're in a hamster wheel. It's like they message you, it's like, hey, here's more work, and it's just like just never ending. You're just, when is and you never seem to like get that sort of recognition either. So I've taken a lot of what I've gone through with agencies and like applied sort of the opposite to mine where yeah, like I've built out SOPs despite having a small team, just in case, like, when I do bring in someone to hire out, I'm making sure the operations are set, or at least the baseline of it, so that when I do onboard a new client or when I do onboard a new team member, everything's flowing sort of smoothly. It's all organized. There's that. The big one though that I've been almost overcompensating for is leadership. I had a really bad experience as a leader when I ran my very first business, which is like I was a painting franchisee. So I was only 18 years old and I managed 9 different people, and it was not a good year. So here I'm being a lot more cognizant of how I can be a better leader. So with my copywriters, like I'll have a call with them every week. And instead of having these agency check-ins like, hey, how's the client work doing? What did you do? Instead of that, it's more of like coaching calls, like, how can I help in terms of your copy? How can I even help you find better clients? Like with one of our copywriters, I've just talked to him around how I've been able to build a brand where I have inbound leads coming in. What does my sales process look like with new clients? Some people might see like, oh, like, why would you talk about that with your team members? But for me, it's like the reality situation is I can either pour into my team members and then have them want to stay because they see that I care, they see the opportunity that's out here, or I can pour into them still and then have them leave being better than when they came in. Like I can't control whether they want to stay or leave. To a degree I can, but what I can control is my effort into making them better. So I'm going to do whatever it takes. If they want to leave, sure, that's fine. I'm more than happy to help you get to a better position. If you want to stay, perfect. I'm sure there's going to be opportunities for you to grow within the agencies or within the agency. And then same thing with my other copy. Like a lot of what we talk about is more on the personal side of, we actually get pretty deep in some of our conversations just around like, either it's religion, some of it, of course, is more copy related, but it's always just based around some sort of development, some kind of coaching. Like I tell this to my copiers, like, I'm here to help you as much as you're here to help me. Like, despite the fact that I do pay them, I still want to pour into them a lot more than they pour into me.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. I mean, people will stay a lot longer if they
Yeah.
really enjoy their working environment, and people will leave a lot faster if it's a working environment they don't enjoy, even if it motivates people more than the money to feel happy with what they do every day.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. That's been big focus to me. It's just making sure that I'm setting up a good team culture. I mean, it's not perfect, but we're still early days in sort of the agency days. So that's been my big focus, is because like it's the same thing. Like if you take care of your team members, they're going to go above and beyond for you. They're going to produce better work. Like, so you can't go wrong. If you treat them like crap, then, and you just see them as like a employee or someone that just gets work done and someone that you just pay, sure, you might get like some good work out of them. But once again, if you happen to have landed an A player, they're going to very quickly leave because money is not necessarily the only thing that motivates them. They want to see opportunities. They want to be able to grow. So yeah, that's kind of what I try to give my team members opportunities as well.
And you're in the coaching industry, and you talked about coaching your team. Do you still get coached yourself, and like what do you do there?
Yeah. So last year I've spent over $100,000 in coaching.
Damn,
Um,
wow. In 12
yeah,
months.
yeah.
My
So
God.
hindsight, I made a post about this too. Like I would probably say 20% of what I spent my money on actually moved the needle, whereas 80% was helpful. Don't get me wrong. I've also probably made some investments that I don't know, where that's like a whole different conversation as to why I pay so much. But yes, like I'm very big on, even now with like so I still work one-on-one with Ed, and he helps almost reel my focus back because I'm very quick to buy into coaching or, buy into some kind of program because I just want to learn. I just want to fill any gaps that are possible. The only issue that I run into is just intentionality, because unless you have an actual problem you want to solve for, you're probably not going to get the value you need out of coaching. So that's sort of the thing I've realized. But yes, like to answer your question, like that's been coaching is never gonna sort of go away from me. I just know I can always get better, and like yeah, that's sort of my ethos around it.
You said 20% of the coaching of the money you spend on coaching has been a good investment, and the other 80% has been kind of questionable.
Like, yeah, if we're gonna stick to just sort of like the Pareto principle, I don't want to say questionable in the sense of the money. It's, I guess, like the value that I got out of it. 20% of it was very helpful, like very much helped me become a better leader, become a better copywriter, agency, whatever it is, person. Whereas the other 80%, whatever we want to call it, I'm just going to bunch it in with that, is that I've made the investment. This isn't against the coaching or the people or the coaching companies that I bought from. It's just, once again, my lack of intentionality, where I'm like, oh, I like what these guys are doing. I like what, they teach. Let me buy into them. And I go in, it's kind of like I'm just sort of, there's like the info junkies. It's kind of like that, how I got it, where I'm like, let me just buy into this, thinking that it's going to make me better. But then like I buy into it, I get the dopamine hit, and then it's like, I realize this isn't really what I need right now. And then I wean off of it. So yeah, that's happened quite a lot. But it's just like it's a learning experience. So this year, a big focus is just like cutting back my coaching expense, not because I'm against it. It's just more so I need to be a lot more intentional, especially now that I do have a team and have more of an overhead. I just need to be able to be a little bit more financially responsible.
That makes sense. I mean, one thing I've noticed with coaching is that there's a lot of excitement comes with joining a program, but if you're going to get some value out of it, you are giving yourself more work to do. And if you're not prepared to do a bunch of work, like it can be very easy to fall into that trap of, okay, I'll just pay this money, I'll show up for my coaching calls, and magically somehow great things are going to happen. But it's like, no, it's not just the money investment. You've got to invest the time, and you've got to say, okay, I'm prepared to do a bunch of work. And I've had that experience where you get into a coaching program, like, damn, like the amount of shit they want me to do, I just can't find the time for this. And I'm like, well, it wasn't really the money that was actually the problem. It was just I didn't have the time to make the best use of.
Exactly. Yeah, that sums it up for me as well. Yeah, it's all the knowledge, all the wisdom, everything, all the value you're going to get out of coaching comes from the work that you do. And this doesn't even have to happen, like, it doesn't matter if you buy into coaching or not. Like, doing it is just what's going to get you further. Just knowing the information is not enough. I mean, I know it's like such a cliche thing to say, but I almost have to learn that lesson the hard way. And that's just how I am. It's like people have told me, but yeah, I just almost went against some of the things that they said and just did it my own way. And like I said, learned it the hard way. But yeah, you're better off doing the work and then running into problems and then finding someone that can help you fix that problem, rather than trying to preemptively create problems out of nothing and then buy into something when in reality, you probably could have, used that cash for something better, or there's opportunity costs as well with it. The other thing I've noticed with myself is that you can start to use it as a crutch. If you invest in too much coaching, or you're spread so thin between so many different programs and coaches, one, you're going to get analysis paralysis. Two, everyone says different things or has different ways of doing things. And then three, you just get to a point where you can't take actually, this is where I got to the point where you can't take the action before almost checking in with the coaches, like get a second opinion to make sure you're doing the right things. Like, you almost detract the ability to trust your gut and to give your confidence, or to build confidence, by outsourcing it to other people. And I'm going to credit Ed for this. He called me out on this a couple of weeks ago when we talked about this, because I was debating on investing in another coach. And he says, like, it seems to me that, you tend to try and outsource your confidence. And that totally called me out, because one, I'm trying to outsource the work, which doesn't work. Or at least when you invest in coaches, because you have to do the hard work. But two, you can't outsource your confidence as well. You need to be able to develop an intuition and experience, and it just comes with messing up. Like, that's been my big focus, is instead of coming to my coach and be like, what do you think about this? Or, should I do this? It's creating some kind of solution, creating an action plan, getting a second opinion on it, or taking action on it, And then if something goes wrong, be like, hey, like this happened, I did this happened, what should I do? Or like, this is what my thoughts are. Do you agree? That kind of stuff. Instead of leaning completely on them and be like, okay, name, what do I do? Tell me what to do now. That's the big, once again, big transition from freelancer to agency owners. The journey from whatever, beginner to agency writer to freelancer, it's very systematized where it's like, hey, take these steps, do these things, you'll achieve Y result. It's like do a certain amount of outreach, write a certain amount in a day, send a certain amount of samples, you'll eventually reach the result. When you actually create a well-established freelancing business or even agency, it becomes a lot more abstract where your attention is being pulled in so many directions. You just kind of have to hone in on one road. And like I said, take the action. If something goes wrong, then find someone that can fix that problem rather than, there's no sort of set system to be like, this is what you do to have a very successful business. Like everyone has such a different way to do it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I've found of late that the best coaching I'm getting is from the people I'm working with more experienced people or more successful people, and just the feedback from what they say about how to do the work, watching how they do their work, and like asking them about, the things they've done and how they approach their work. Got an awful lot from that. And especially because it's not abstract at that point, there's work on the line today that has to be done. And you're usually, the attention is centered around that. Whereas in a coaching thing, often you are speaking about your work, but it can often get into very abstract territory where you're talking about theoreticals or hypothetical situations that haven't happened yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. That has been one of my frustrations with like same thing. A lot of the coaching that I did invest in, it felt abstract and theoretical to me because I just wasn't willing to do the work, despite the fact that I paid the money for it. So that was a good learning lesson for me. The other value too, I learned that is like, if you're going to invest in coaching, your best bet is to work with them for as long as possible. Like if you're going to invest in someone, the intention should be to work long term. Like with me and Ed, I invested with Ed. I first started working with him May of 2022. We started doing one-on-one work September 2022. It's January 2024. I'm still working one-on-one with them. And the value that I've gotten working with him is so much greater because he now understands the way I think, the way I process information, the way I act, my motivations, my desires, my fears. Like it's all come through with all the calls that we've done and all the time we spent together. Not to mention, we built such a great relationship outside the business. So we're like really good friends now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the longer you work with the coach, the more value you're going to get out of it because they're going to understand you better. But also as a benefit, you sort of like unintentionally create a friend out of that can probably provide so much more value in the future rather than once again stretching yourself super thin with a bunch of different programs and coaches.
Awesome. I'm going to pull it back towards work a little bit because you talked earlier on about like working with the sales teams in your clients' businesses. And this is something that I've of late realized, working with some of the clients I work with, that there's so much really, really good, valuable knowledge that that only the closers on the phone with the leads every day have. And maybe you could just talk a little bit about that and how that's informed you in your copywriting and how other copywriters can take advantage of that.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned this. I just recently created like a training for Bastian Slot in his community, and that's one of the things I mentioned is like a lot of these business owners struggle with what do I actually write about. One of them was like speak to your sales guys, find out what's being said on the calls because it's just such valuable information that's being said. In terms of how that's like aided in us, we're becoming a lot more intentional with doing it now. I'll just be honest and say I probably wasn't as intentional about it previously. But regardless of that, the main benefit that comes to that one is like the obvious one is just you figure out what the objections are, and then you're just able to pre-handle those objections in the copy that you write. But two is this is something I'm learning in high ticket sales is that if you are able to enter the conversation in someone's mind, basically say the exact same things that they're thinking, or even do it better, then they're instantly going to put trust in you. They're instantly going to see you as an authority, as a credibility figure, because you just put words to their problems. So now they assume you have the solution, even if you don't. They just assume you have the right solution for them. And it's the same thing, is if you listen to the sales calls or get the transcripts or just get your sales guys to like basically tell you what is being said, if you just take certain elements, certain lines, be like, you know, whatever, for biz op, like, hey, like I'm stressed out, I can't sleep at night because I'm struggling to pay the mortgage. My job just doesn't pay me enough, whatever. If you write that in one of the pieces of copy, not just one person, there's probably gonna be 100,000, 10,000, million, whatever it is, people that read that be like, oh my God, that's me. Like this guy knows exactly how I feel. So that's the value in understanding what the sales process is going like, because it's very easy to detach yourself or think that marketing and sales or advertising and sales is different. It's not. Like you're basically going back and forth and exchanging information of like, hey, this is what works on the marketing end, say this in the sales call. Or it's like, hey, this is the feedback I'm getting on the sales call, implement this in the marketing. Because then overall it just creates such a cohesive process and system where by the time they jump on a call, it's like the dream is that the client or the prospect's like, yeah, you know, I read this piece and it answered all the questions. I don't have anything. I'm just ready to buy. That's it. So that's the biggest thing I would say.
And one thing I know with a lot of copywriters, and something we've talked about with Matthew a bit as well, is that copywriters often make the mistake of letting themselves kind of get isolated in their client engagements where they think they're just going to write their copy and deliver and it's going to be fine. So how do you go beyond that and actually start to build relationships with people inside the client team so you can get that valuable information?
Yeah, good question. So I'm gonna go one step further, and I'm the same way. I'm very much introverted. Copywriters can also isolate themselves socially, which doesn't help them. The more social you are, the more you walk around and talk with people, just have a group of friends that you hang out with, the more in tune you're gonna be. There's a famous copywriter, I don't remember who said this. There's a quote that goes around in our industry where it's like, at a certain point, you're going to have to leave your like penthouse apartment to go hang out with, the common people to understand what problems they're going through. So it's like the same thing with copywriters is like, if you're all you're doing is writing copy all day and you're not actually socializing, you miss out on that sort of human psychology aspect of it and the understanding of people's desires and whatnot. But in terms of building the relationships with clients, the one simple way that I've done it as a freelancer is just hop on a weekly call with them. So the way I frame this to clients is one, we're going to hop on a call for like half hour, 45 minutes a week. You don't have to do any of the copywriting, anything. I'm going to take care of that. But all I need from you is 45 minutes of your time every week where one, we just go back and forth with chit chat because it's going to help me understand your voice and give me some, content ideas, especially topical content ideas to write about that brings more sales, books more calls because it's relevant. But then two, like the benefit there is like you get to same thing with coaching because you speak with them on a daily basis. They start to understand how you think and they start to, build a relationship with you. You start to build a relationship with them. The way I run the calls, I usually ask sort of tough questions that make them get vulnerable around their story and around their experiences. And it's the same thing. You almost unintentionally create that relationship with them. So then by the time, you write the copy, send it to them, they love it. The results are good because it's them like laid out. It's valuable to the audience and it's relevant. And after that, it becomes so much easier to ask them to like, hey, by the way, can can you connect me with your sales manager? Can you connect me with this person so I can talk to them and then, get some information so we can make the emails better. You can either skip the relationship building aspect of it and just jump right to that because it's going to work anyways. Any client is going to love the fact that you're going above and beyond and thinking ahead and being proactive and strategizing around your content. But you just can't go wrong with both.
Thank you. And when you are like out in the market and you're talking to people or potentially looking to work with somebody new, what are you looking for with a potential new client that tells you, yeah, I can actually get a good result for this person. This is a good opportunity for me. And and on the opposite side, what tells you like I probably won't be the right person to help this person?
So for our sort of freelancing agency
Yes.
clients, yeah. So one other sort of lesson is, and this is good when you're starting out either way, is taking on any client that you possibly can just to get the reps in. That's sort of what I did in 2023 as a freelancer, and I actually ended up cycling through not that many clients, but like a good chunk of clients. But then the core clients stayed. So what that taught me is that I realized, okay, like here's what the core clients that stayed, this is what they have. And then the clients that cycle through, this is what they didn't have. And it allows me to set criteria now. So right now for us, the criteria is one, they're minimum making 100K a month cash collected, not revenue, because it's not real money unless the cash is in the bank. That's the way I see it. So if it's 100K per month cash collected, then you can have a decent amount of impact in the coaching or in their business with emails, because they probably have a good infrastructure, a good sales team set up. They don't get to 100K a month by accident. Two, they have a list of at least 20,000 people or more, which once again shows me one, that they have a decent size opt-in or a decent opt-in, or they have a process for actually collecting the leads. Plus, once again, 20,000 just seems to be the number of leads that the people that we have the biggest impact with just have. And then three, this is a new one that I've implemented more so because I want to work with more people that are paying for traffic. So paid traffic, because it's so much more scalable. And that's with the client that we've generated 700K in 100 days. They're primarily on ads. Like they don't really have an organic brand. It's mostly just paid ads. So I'm transitioning there, and it's anyone spending at least 15 to 20K a month on ads. Same thing, because all three of those things just show me that they're growing, they're scaling, and that there's opportunity with emails because they have the infrastructure set up, and they're able to afford the fees that we charge. With the email list, they have a base lead or like set of leads that we can already target and generate good results with. But then three, with the ad spend, they're constantly growing that list, but they're also focused on actually scaling the business. Because organic, it's predictable, it's unpredictable at the same time, because you can't necessarily control when and how people come in. But with paid, like if you just put out a good ad, it scales. Pour more money into the ad, more people are going to come in. So it's pretty it's pretty self-explanatory there. So yeah, that's kind of why I set up the criteria and the criteria that we have now. But that being said, like I didn't start off with having any of these. I was just like, hey, sure, I'll work with you. Like one of my very first clients, God bless them, they were making 20K a month and they were paying me 3K for like daily Facebook posts. And when I found that out, when we stopped working together, we still have a really good relationship, but I don't know, I was just like, that is insane to me that someone was paying that much with, when the revenue was not that high. So yeah, my point is just like, don't be afraid to actually work with, especially if you're starting out, don't be afraid to work with anyone and anything, just to kind of figure out what's working, what's not, and what you like and what you don't like.
Awesome. And then for coaching businesses generally, like for a copywriter coming in, I mean, the key thing is obviously write good copy. But what else can a copywriter or freelancer do coming into a business? Like the things that coaching businesses typically miss, stuff that can basically stack the deck in their favor. What kind of other stuff do you find are like easy wins that maybe the business owner could have done themselves, but just didn't know to do?
This is going to sound so ridiculously simple, but like it really does come down. This is what I've noticed at least, is really does come down to just being consistent with the emails or whatever content you're putting out. A lot of the clients that have come to me is like, yeah, we've tried writing emails ourselves, but it's just like it's been inconsistent. We don't have the time to do it. So it's the consistency that stacks. So as long as you just do good work and you do it every day, and you are a good person to your client, you're going to be 80% of the way ahead. There's that. Number two is, this is something I've found out really well. So with the client that made 72K within 9 days, they made it from an email that I wrote that's literally only 13 words long. And the reason it worked really well is, as a marketer, advertiser, as a copywriter, once again, this is where advertising, marketing, and sales come together, is you got to leverage each other. Because if your client has setters or some person in the sales team that can go back and forth and talk to these people, talk to the leads before they book a call, the intent is so much higher and they're more likely to close. So send emails that just generate some kind of answer. For the email that we sent, it was literally just like a, hey, name, do you want X or Y? That's it. And then that's why it was 13 words long. And they ended up getting so many people responding, which worked really well because it boosted their deliverability, got, booked out their sales team, kept them busy, but also brought in 72K worth of sales within sort of the 9 days that we sent those emails out. Maybe it's more, I don't know. I just know that because we've sent it for those 9 days. So those are the two things I would say around work-wise, what you can do for clients. The third thing is more around what you can do to be retain your clients longer. It's just, I guess maybe not two, maybe two things. Submit your work on time. This was always obvious to me, but I've been educated that it's actually quite rare that copywriters submit their work on time. So submit it a day early. Like that just goes so far with all the clients. And that's what I do with all our clients. Like, hey, we're going to submit on this day. But in reality, I'm just going to submit it the day before because it just builds that dynamic better. But then number two is just like keep a constant flow of communication. One of the biggest reasons that the clients that have fallen off is because I didn't keep that communication with them. It was just more so like, hey, I'm just going to do my thing. I'll just submit the copy once a week. And then that's it. We don't really talk. It doesn't matter. Just check in with them, ask them questions, be proactive, so, like send ideas. Freaking business owners love that when you're just like, hey, I have an idea for this. What are your thoughts? Or like, I noticed that, show up rates aren't high on emails. So, let's do this, or let me connect me with your sales manager so I can strategize with them on how we can increase show up rates, like stuff like that. Become, even though you're your own entity, become a driving force, like be a consultant in their business and be somewhat of like a team member, like have your own boundaries, but make it feel like all of your focus is on them. Despite the fact that you might have 3 to 4 clients on the side, it feels like you're only working with them. And that, once again, that goes so far.
Awesome. I love it. I think that's a really nice note to wrap up this interview on, Dan. Thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. No, I appreciate you bringing me on.
I'm going to put all your contact stuff in the video description. But if people want to reach out to you, what's the best place to do it?
Facebook, Dan Bagniuk. Just search me up on Facebook, send me a message. That's usually where I live. I'm also on Twitter now, just kind of shit posting on there. So if you want to follow me up there, Dan Bagniuk as well. But yeah, those 2 platforms, you'll be able to find me and we can chat. So
awesome. Thank you so much, Dan. I'm going to stop the recording now and enjoy the rest of your day.
you too. Thank you.